Hey there folks, and welcome back and Happy New Year. And today we are going to get into some stuff that's going on currently in the United States and around the world. But before we do, I just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year and say thank you to everyone out there who has stuck around and has been waiting for some new content to come out. And so to that, cheers. So, as we roll into the new year, things that we're going to keep seeing here that I am now seeing come up because I live very close to Chicago is that Illinois is ramping up on a lot of their COVID restrictions. And let me grab my notes here real quick, just so I'm not giving you guys some bad information. One of the things that is essentially happening in Illinois is Chicago in particular has basically completely locked down the city to anyone who is unvaccinated. Now, as many of you out there know, we really shouldn't be calling this thing a vaccine because it's essentially a flu shot that you have to continually get over and over. So I will see if I can find the link to it, but there is a study out of Denmark that basically just showed the efficacy of the Pfizer and Moderna shots, and basically after 60 days they're essentially useless. So with the rise in U.S. cases as being reported by Reuters, they're saying roughly 1 million cases a day now in the United States. So expect to see restrictions like what's happening in Chicago completely across most of what I would consider the Democrat states. So California is having it a lot in Los Angeles and those type of areas. New York is really ramping up. They're actually arresting people now, including children who don't have a vaccine card and are sitting in the Burger King. So, yes, that is a real story. So things are getting a little crazy out there as we're rolling into 2022, rolling into the midterms, and as, I hate to say it, but as our authoritarian current government continues to see power fade, they're going to continue to ramp up the efforts of pushing the information saying, hey, look, here's a whole bunch of cases. But what you really need to look at here is deaths are actually way down. They are very, 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 very down. So cases, it's roughly the same thing as the flu. There's tens of millions of cases every year of the flu. And there's roughly 60 to 80,000 deaths every year just from the flu. That doesn't even factor in comorbidities. If you factor in comorbidities, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000 people. So keep that in mind when you're going out there and you're out and about with the COVID stuff. And, you know, honestly, do what's best for you. If you think a mask is going to work for you, go for it. If you don't, then don't. And honestly, the best thing I think we can do moving forward, just as a whole, as a society, is just stop complying with all these restrictions and all these really authoritarian mandates, because as a society, we need to realize that this is not going away. It's endemic. It's going to be here pretty much forever at this point. And it is what it is, right? So we're going to need to learn to live with it. It's going to be around forever. Same thing we had to do with H1N1, SARS, MERS, and all the other influenza variants that are out there. So as we get deeper into 2022, just make sure that you're watching what the politicians are doing. Watch what your local politicians are doing, your neighborhoods, your townships. And as we move into the midterms and as we move forward, just in politics in general here, if you're not okay with what your politicians are doing, then vote them out. It's as simple as that. Everyone really needs to just get out, vote. Whether I agree with your vote or not, or whether you agree with my standpoint, get out and vote, because ultimately it's your opinions and your ideals that are ultimately going to drive what the politicians are doing. And hopefully they'll stop kind of catering to the rage mob, which is a very small portion of sane United States. And that goes for both sides of the aisle, left or right. If you're part of that rage mob, please just stop. No one really cares. Us normal people who really just want to get on with our lives and live our lives really just don't care about your political agendas. So I'll leave that there. And we'll move on to something that's actually a little interesting that has kind of ramped up towards the end of 2020 and into 2022 here. So we've talked about it before, and the car market is very interesting right now. It's basically impossible to find a new car at a reasonable price. Used cars are astronomically overpriced, in my opinion. And the other kind of weird component to that is pretty much every dealership I've talked to and every manufacturer I've talked to is the actual auto parts themselves. There are some massive shortages in there. And Daimler Chrysler in particular had just put out a bulletin of a possible car fire issue that is basically a recall, but they don't have the parts to actually fix the recall. So that should scare you if you're someone who drives a car, especially if you've gotten that recall. But just as someone who drives a car frequently or needs a car to get from A to B, grocery shopping, that kind of stuff like myself, that should really scare you. If your car is your main way of getting to the grocery store, getting to your job, getting to whatever else it is that you need, if there's fewer and fewer parts to fix your car, and you have to pay $20,000 to $30,000 more for a brand new car, and upwards of, I think I've seen cars that are $25,000 priced over market value for used cars. There's something going on, and there's external factors that I'm not privy to, that something is happening in the industry. And that kind of leads me into the next thing here. And that is the electric car market. And so one of the big things you were seeing with Ford, Chevy, I believe Tesla just shipped like 328,000 cars in 2021, which is just insane. For basically a single car manufacturer, they really only make a couple models. That's huge numbers, considering all the shortages that we're seeing across the board with all the other car manufacturers out there right now. So I think that's going to be a big push in the next coming years. Is going to be a push towards like Ford with their F-150 Lightning and Chevy coming out with their competitor to that. So keep an eye on that. It may be, a good thing to get into some of those stocks potentially if you're into the stock market and trading. Because, who knows? It looks like that is going to be the trend moving forward here. Next 10, 15 years is going to be a heavy push towards the electric vehicles. Now, on the flip side of that, one thing that is extremely interesting about the whole electric car market is one of the largest demographics of electric cars is the Los Angeles, Southern California area. And California just came out and said, hey, we need you guys to reduce your use of the power grid and stop charging your electric cars. So this kind of goes hand in hand with that. They're ramping up production on electric cars. More and more manufacturers are moving towards electric. But power grid can't sustain that because of green energy just can't sustain the amount of energy, electric, that we all use. So they're literally telling people to stop charging their cars. Think about that for a minute. If that's your main mode of transportation to get to everywhere you need to go, they're telling you not to charge your vehicle to reduce the strain on the power grid. I don't know. I think it's crazy, but let me know what you guys think in the comments on that one, because that just blows my mind. All right, so that's a good segue into basically pricing, shortages, that kind of stuff. We're going to see more of those. Like I've been saying, I feel like I've just been hounding that one constantly, but 2022 is going to be bad. The shortages are going to get worse. They're going to continue. Prices are going to keep increasing. And that leads me into one of the largest retailers in the world, not just the United States, in the world, which is IKEA. Now, IKEA had basically kept their pricing down all through 2020, all through 2021, even through the shortages. And just recently, I believe within like the last month, I think it was back here in December, IKEA just announced that they are going to be across the board, all their stores, every location, raising prices. I believe the figure was up to 25% depending on items and availability. So that could lead into what's happening in China with just pricing and the cost of goods coming out of there, or I should say the lack of goods coming out of there, since IKEA does source a lot of their materials from China. So just keep an eye on more large companies like that. Walmart's raised prices now, Kroger's raised prices, Target's raised prices, now IKEA's stepping into the game. I was just looking at Harbor Freight, obviously another one that sources a lot of materials from China. Harbor Freight prices are up. Granted, Harbor Freight actually has done a pretty good job of keeping them relatively low comparative to places like Home Depot and Lowe's. So just look for that stuff. Bear that in mind as you're moving forward, planning projects, whether you've got a summer deck project coming along this year or a bathroom remodel, any of that kind of stuff. The prices are up, and they're going to continue to rise until we can get through the backlog of shipping containers and the shortage of raw materials at this point. Now, obviously, I don't think the government is telling us everything that they know. This is not to be conspiracy theory, but I mean, come on. The government doesn't always tell us everything. Fact of the matter is, looking back at COVID, they knew back in 2019 of October that this had happened in China. We didn't really truly know about anything in the United States until March, and it wasn't until April that the media really kind of blew it up. So keep that in mind as you're watching this video. You know, where I lie, I don't really trust the government. I don't believe what they say. I take everything that they say with a grain of salt. So I try to get my information from multiple sources, fact check as much as I can based off of the multiple sources. Try to look at right wing, left wing, independent, middle of the road, all that kind of stuff. And I try to only bring to you guys the stuff that actually makes sense and the stuff that seems to be factual and true. Because that's not my goal here, not to give you or lead you in some sort of direction, just to give you straight, honest truth and kind of give my opinion around that, right? So that'll lead me into essentially the last thing for this video, and we'll leave it there for the first video of 2022. And that is, we're seeing an increase again in cyber attacks. And it's interesting because right now we're seeing a lot of cyber attacks in the banking industry, which I'm not really sure what the goal is there, if that is, like people have talked about in the past, destabilizing the US currency, which is the dollar, aka the petrodollar. I don't know. I don't know if it's a identity theft type of thing, or if they're thinking if they can bring down the financial system, that they can do some sort of reset. I really don't know. And I'm obviously going to continue to look into that and see if I can track down any information on specifically what's happening with these attacks, because I really don't know. I just found out about this fairly recently, especially with the banking portion of this. But I suspect that in 2022, we're going to see a lot more ramping up of the cyber attacks just across the board. So, sorry, I'm trying to drink this. If you're interested, very good, Michter's American whiskey. Around me, it's about $42 a bottle. And it is a fabulous, fabulous sipping whiskey. So, lower proof, but love it. Very smooth. Sorry, going off on a tangent about whiskey there, but it's a very good one. So, look for those cyber attacks to ramp up and really make sure that you are protected online. And you know, there's only so much you can do to truly protect yourself online. And really, two of those things are going to be making sure that you have strong passwords. And when I say strong passwords, I mean like 256-bit encrypted passwords. Things that would basically take a brute force attack 2 billion years to figure out. And along with that, one of the ways that makes that really easy for you is some sort of password manager, whether that is LastPass, which I use and I really enjoy, or I think 1Password, and I'm sure there's probably others out there, but LastPass and 1Pass are the two major players in that game. It really is a game changer when you're on 30, 40, 50 million different sites to keep track of a different password for every single one of those. The best way to do that is a password manager with a very, very long, hard to guess password. So keep that in mind. The other way is going to be a VPN, and really your best bet is something that you're going to pay for. I think you can get things like Nord or Express for under $10 a month. And basically what that would allow you to do is to kind of hide your primary location. And that helps with ad tracking, like Facebook, Twitter, Google, all these that basically track everything you do on the internet. That's going to kind of prevent them from really tracking a lot of what you do. And so, like I said, with that too, is obviously you don't want to be tracked on the internet. So ad blockers, if you can use them, obviously I know that's how on YouTube most people make, including myself, make money, is you guys watching the videos and the ad revenue behind them. But honestly, for most sites, if you guys want to turn them off, if you're watching my videos, greatly appreciate that. But realistically, for most of the web, most of the websites you're going to be visiting, your best bet is to have some sort of ad blocker, tracking blocker, or whatever that is. So I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this content. And as always, like, share, subscribe, keep spreading the word. And thank you guys so much for making 2021 just an amazing year for me here on YouTube. I never expected it to go the way it did, and I really do appreciate each and every one of you who have stuck by the channel and, you know, continue to come back and comment and share the videos. And until next time, this is Brian with Foxfire Armory. See you soon.